Well, hello, we're live. Welcome to the Enlightenment Exchange. It's John and I again today, which is fun.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, it's always fun.
Yeah.
We always have fun. And I really like this. I really like this topic for today. So I just want to do us a little banner right quick. Just, just because we don't have that, we have some space across the
We
bottom
got some
today.
space. Let's fill it up. Fill it up with explanatory titles.
So while I was having part of it was I was having a conversation with Matthew and about science and spirituality because I'm in a business mastermind. It's no hassle, like no hassle website. So she also has a mastermind, and
Yep.
some of the projects I do are, her design. Like she gives them whatever. Anyway, very many of the things she teaches when she's teaching these projects are things like limiting beliefs and I actually have a white box edition of the Mind movie that I'm going to be able to do a class on,
Cool.
which is her creation. Have you seen my Mind movie? I think we've talked about this.
I think we talked
It's
about
on
it.
Canva. It's a bunch of slides, and it's like a video vision board.
Oh, I see. Nice.
And
That's
it's
very
going to
cool.
be a really, really fun workshop when I put it together and release it. I've got a couple of other things I need to get out there first. But anyway, so she is Netta, an atheist. So when you say anything to her about woo-woo, that is like, no, I'm not woo-woo. So I tell her she's woo-woo adjacent.
Oh, nice. That's a good term.
Right? Like she's woo-woo adjacent because she's really teaching so many of the same things that we teach and talk about in the,
Right.
In the spiritual world. But she believes in, and this is what she said to me, I believe in the science. I said, okay, well, I don't question the science.
Show.
Right? Like, so, and what I believe is this, that however a person gets to releasing limiting beliefs, whether they get it from a person who is science minded or spirituality minded, it's a good thing. Right.
Right.
So I was like, okay, this is cool. So then I was having a conversation with Matthew, which is, as you can imagine, a conversation in my head with a snarky guy is always fun.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, you use the microwave, but you don't know anything about the science. You don't know the science behind it. You use a microwave, you don't know the science behind it. You use a computer, you don't know the science behind it, but you believe that the science exists.
Right.
So what's the difference? What is the difference between that and spirituality? Well, the computer and the microwave are things you can actually see, where many of the spirituality based concepts are energetic in nature, right?
Right. They're less tangible.
Yeah, a lot less tangible, but no less impactful, I would say.
Right.
Right.
And I would also say no less evidence for the spiritual side. There's been, so I don't know if I can jump on my little soapbox right now.
Of course you can, because you did something exciting that a lot of people would like to do. So
yes,
and it's all focused on this particular topic anyway.
Yep.
So yeah, yep. I think the
timing
up for this.
My book has just come out. It's called The Woo Woo Book, and it is about it's about bringing joy into your life. And the first part of the book is more, how do science and religion and culture get it wrong, and how can they get it right? I've often felt that science and religion specifically oppose woo-woo. They oppose, spiritual exploration. And I make a pretty good case in the book for, what science actually does support it. It's just been either suppressed or kind of dismissed. There's a researcher. His name's Dean Radin. And I was kind of reading some of his research, and basically he was saying one of the examples, my favorite example is you put two people in separate rooms, separate buildings even, you show one person a picture and the other person is trying to pick it up, right? Trying to figure out what the image is being shown. And when they do this test over and over and over and over again by multiple scientists, multiple locations, the person getting the pictures isn't like, let's say there's four possible pictures. He's not 25% correct, as you'd expect with statistics. It's like 25.5 or 25.4. There's always just a little bit more percentage correct. Why is that? And nobody can answer that without saying there must be something going on here. Even better, if you put two, closely bonded people, mother and son, a husband and wife couple that's, has a really strong bond, that number goes up even higher, even if they're not technically psychic. The number goes higher the closer their bond is.
What is technically psychic?
Okay, so someone who's not someone who doesn't know anything about the psychic world, right? You put a closely bonded mother and son, and they do the same experiment, and that number of getting the number right is even higher.
Right. So I think that's a really good case in point that everyone's an empath. Right. Everybody's an energy sensitive, and everybody has the ability to make a connection. And
which goes to show. So here's my point by saying all that. Our ability to sense into that, to feel, to connect to the other side is innate. It's human. It's not woo-woo. One way you can say it is it's not woo-woo. It's actually something we're supposed to do. We just kind of don't know how to do it.
And I think personally that we needed it more centuries ago than we do now, because you needed to be really able to sense whether the person coming towards you, was getting ready, was friend or foe, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
So I wonder, crazy. I recently watched 2 full seasons of The Serpent Queen, which I don't want to talk about, but those times, right?
Yep.
In those times, 15, 16, 1700s, they fully believed in magic. They fully believed in visions. They, they really believed in those things. Now, of course, that's a TV show, and they're going to be more powerful in a TV show. But I just wonder if we haven't technologied our intuition out of ourselves. If we haven't scienced it out of ourselves. You know what I mean?
So I think the science establishment has done 2 things. One, it's provided us all this, gadgetry that kind of takes the place of what was needed earlier, but also has made the world, has reduced the world to basically molecules and radio waves, right? If we can't, for the body, we can't figure it out as a molecule, it doesn't exist. If it's not a radio wave that I can pick up with my, with my sensors, my devices, then it doesn't exist. And so it's actually a name for it. It's reductionism. We've been reduced to what is physically sensible, as in not good sense, but as in being able to sense. We've been reduced to that. And then everything else that doesn't fit in line with that little box is dismissed. And people that say, I only believe in science, say, no, you only believe what the scientific establishment tells you is possible.
Right.
I did a funny thing. I read a book, read a story about the, it was a story in Psychology Today. The psychologist was saying, hey, we found that some children seem to have recollections of past lives, and they gave a lot of good evidence about that, and like really, really interesting stories. And I was with a group of people, and I said, this is a really interesting article. And we were kind of debating it. And another guy came in, and he's a real hardcore science type. And I said, you should check this out. He says, it's not true. It can't be. It cannot be true. And I said, you should read the article. He says, why should I read the article? What'll I learn? I already know it's not possible. Like, so what's good science? Good science is taking the evidence and making a decision. Bad science is discounting evidence. He was literally discounting the evidence because in his paradigm, it could not be true.
Right. So, in the grand scheme of things, does it matter what he believes?
True. But in talking about science, that's what science does to people.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Now, it's interesting as you said that. I was reminded of Penn and Teller. Penn and Teller, who do these amazing magic shows, all while proving to you that magic is not real. And I remember hearing Penn say, and there are no dead people that you can talk to. Like basically
Yep.
just totally poo-pooing the medium. So I think a valid point of conversation here is this. It seems to me, just seems to me, I'm not, making any judgments or casting any aspersions, but it seems to me that we have some comments too. It seems to me that those of us who are spiritual minded are more willing to let the sciencey people live and let live, where the sciencey people seem to be the ones that want to kind of, knock us down a peg.
That's interesting. Yeah. They've got a bigger chip on their shoulder, shall we say. Or maybe another way to say it is they have more of an agenda to prove. And we're like, you believe what you want to believe. The evidence should stand for itself. And I think we're a little bit more like a little more chill about it.
Right. So this comment, they're properly things we don't have answers to. Humans cannot think too much about these questions because it creates them suffering, and this is not skillful action.
It seems to me that what he's saying is that these are pretty big questions, right? The idea of, and to trying to convince someone who's fully in the reductionist scientific view, try and convince them. Number one, it's hard. Number two, is there any point to it? There's just a lot of suffering involved in trying to do that.
So here's another piece of it that I'm really interested in, and it is what I led with. For example, limiting beliefs. Working on limiting beliefs. They coexist. They exist in the spiritual world. They exist in the scientific world, right? Because you have when you work with a therapist, they look at your core beliefs. They look at the things. When we work energy work with a person, we also work on limiting beliefs, and we just release them in a different way. Therapy brings awareness to them. Energy work actually finds them in a person's aura. And I'm sorry, they do. I feel them, I sense them, and I've had people that I've worked with, sense the shifts and create change. So why? What am I trying to say? Why is somebody? I mean, I get that they're science minded, right? And they believe in science. Why are they so afraid to believe in the woo?
I think when someone challenges even a simple statement like we have five senses, if someone challenges that, that's a threat. In fact, this is good. This is good. And this is in my book as well. There's a conversation about people that had premonitions before the World Trade Center, terrorist attack on 9/11. People had premonitions, and people actually changed their decision for the day based on a dream or a premonition that they had. And they interviewed someone about that, and I love the quote. The scientist they interviewed said, "Well, if premonitions were actually true, if this is actually true, that changes everything we could possibly know about physics. And we can't do that. I was like, yes, that changes everything you know about physics. And you can't do that, or you won't do that. That's the problem right there.
Right. So can physics and woo coexist? I mean, I believe the laws of physics do prevail, but I believe that's a human thing,
So,
right?
yes, physics and woo woo can exist, but you have to have a really, really open mind as to what evidence you're going to look at, right? For example,
Yeah,
in this premonition thing, if there's a premonition of someone having a vision of something happen before it happens, that means our concept of time isn't 100% linear. And if a
right.
time isn't 100% linear, then physics is going to have to say, well, for most cases, we know it's going to be doing this, but we also know there's something that sometimes happens that makes the time nonlinear. We don't know what it is, but we're going to have to say in
Well,
physics, it's got to be there.
here's the thing. Oh, yeah, right. You're physics and linear time are both human constructs.
That is
That's
true.
it.
Yep.
They're both human constructs. So Coventina says she's seen proof of those who believe in a higher power and those who don't, who have successful lives. So I'm not sure if she means that the ones that don't have a successful life, or I'm not really sure what she means there. But she also said she's had premonitions of earthquakes. I mean, if we exist on all timelines, then premonitions make sense to me.
Right. Right.
Um,
If your concept of time isn't the strictly linear mechanical view, then premonitions make sense.
right?
But if your box is time is linear, it goes from A to B from 12 to 1, and there is no way to get outside of that, then you have to believe that premonitions are impossible.
And then this is interesting. Very many, very many of the people who believe in science as it is also believe that you're born, you live, you die. That's it.
Yep.
There's nothing on the other
Right.
side.
The
So,
whole spiritual thing is non-existent to them.
spiritual, religious, whatever, like the whole concept of, like the other side. Now, I love Kyle Cease, always brings everything back to the fear of death. But is it possible that science is something they can hold on to? And what happens after you die, if it's not nothing, is just too unknown. It's too far out there for them to be able to. Do you see what I'm going? See
Yeah.
where I'm
Yeah.
going? Like it's just too much. Like that, the fear of the unknown, right? And that's a real human thing. I mean that's I'm
Mhm.
sure there's science behind that. But if you hold on so tight to science that gives you comfort, then maybe the idea of not knowing what happens to you after you die is one of the reasons that it does, because it would support you're born, you live, you die, that's it. And if you're not going to know anything about it, then it doesn't matter.
Oh, it's kind of like I don't I can't even fathom thinking about this, therefore I'm just going to dismiss it.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Although
Really?
one of the things I did read, which is interesting, is there are many scientists who do believe in spiritual connection. They've actually experienced it themselves in their lives. Some example, various examples of either psychic happenings. But what happens is they say, I really can't speak about this in my career because this would be a career killer. So I'm going to have to toe the party line and not talk about this publicly so I can save my career.
Yeah, there are quite a few like that. And then I mean I can think of one in particular, Hibiscus Moon. very, very popular crystal. Although she's retired to some degree, I think she's working on some new
Hmm.
program. But she was a high school science teacher. She is
Mhm.
very science based, and her course is all based on the science of crystals and
I love
the
that.
resonance that they hold, and yet she takes the science and explains it and blends it with the magic so beautifully
Hmm. That's cool.
that it's when I try to explain energy healing to someone and tell them they are made of
Made
energy.
of.
Yeah, made. That's what I said.
Okay.
Made of energy. I have to explain that the cells in their body moving through their body are energy. Everything is energy, right? So, yeah, that's one. That energy healing it's a really tough one to explain to people.
Right. Right.
It's really,
But
like what's
but if
happening
you
here.
if you back that up a little bit and go just into the idea of meridians and acupuncture, what's been interesting is where acupuncturists are were at first, let's say, 1950s, just thought as complete quacks, right? And what's available now?
In
There
the
are
West, they were
Yeah,
thought of
in the
as
West, right.
complete
I'm talking about
quacks.
Western medicine. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. Western medicine, Western reductionistic medicine said complete quacks, forget it. Now insurance will pay for an acupuncture
Hmm.
treatment because it's shown to be effective. It's accepted for the most part, by medical community as something's going on there and it's working, so we're going to take it. So we're seeing a little bit of progress, right?
Oh yeah, and you're seeing in many, like hospice or cancer hospice situations where they bring in Reiki
I
practitioners.
was just going to say exactly the same thing. So,
Um,
what is that telling us? Little by little, there's been an acceptance of, hey, okay, we don't know exactly what it's doing, but we're willing to admit that it works. So, okay, we'll allow insurance to pay for that.
and I also think that it is in the medical world, especially, it is bringing in the idea of treating the whole person rather than just the illness, because that's what they used to focus on, is just the
Right.
illness,
Well, on the other hand,
as the doctor is standing there smoking a cigarette, right, while
yeah,
he's taking
yep,
care of you.
yep. On
um
the other hand, the whole pharmaceutical industry is built around finding a chemical that solves this particular symptom, right? That is not holistic care at all. It's very
oh
much
no, 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 no. and and
reductionistic.
and
So
the we are
we're
not
going
going to
in the right
talk.
direction in some things, but not in all things.
Well, I mean, we just can't talk about that.
Okay, we will stop right there.
Because that, yeah, we just can't talk about that. So
We'll get shut
I
down.
in doing some research, I wanted to see if there were some bridges between
Yeah,
science and spirituality, and one of my favorite is meditation and mindfulness. So there
good point.
is research that shows that meditation and mindfulness practices can reduce stress, improve focus, and even alter brain structure. Studies using MRIs have demonstrated regular meditation increases gray matter in areas of the brain associated with memory, empathy, and stress regulation. So Alzheimer's prevention, heart 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 health,
Yep.
right? Like all of
Mhm.
those things.
Yep.
And what's interesting about it is I remember, and I don't have the full details on this, but there was a study done of monks in meditation, and they somehow they were actually measuring their frequency, and as they went into meditation, their frequency went higher,
Yep. Yep.
like as a collective. So I mean, if if anybody could take just one little leap of faith from science to spirituality, I think that would be a very good place to start,
That's a
because
big, yeah, that's a great, foot in the door sort of a thing.
and maybe we just don't need to call it meditation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, because it's that
Practicing awareness is what I've heard it called.
Oh, I like that. So, what? Oh, what's his name? From ABC. He's a reporter from ABC. Dan.
Dan Rather?
No, not Dan Rather. I think his name is Dan. Meditation. He wrote a book about meditation and the power of it. Dan Harris, Mindfulness
Okay.
Journey Changed His Career. If I remember correctly, he actually suffered like from OCD and anxiety and things. And so this mindfulness and meditation. And basically his I love this. Dan Harris on becoming 10% happier. Just 10%. Just start with 10%. And that's really, and he's written a book, and his whole premise in the beginning at least was, can you just sit still for 10 minutes? You know, because everybody has this idea of meditation, and I think this is kind of why sciencey people are kind of like reluctant. Oh, you know, you need to empty your mind. You need to make your mind blank. You need to, you know what I mean? Or you need to visualize.
It sounds too hard.
It does. Yeah. I mean, they do make it sound too hard. Oh, you know, plant your feet and put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth.
Yeah, all that stuff, right? Like, let's go all the way to graduate level stuff. No. Forget.
How about
why don't we start as a beginner?
Right? And do something you already know how to do.
Yeah.
Breathe.
Yeah.
Just think about the air coming in and going out. And then if you do this regularly, I was in yoga. You know, I do yoga on Zoom, which is freaking amazing. It turns out that breathing in and out through your nose is actually, they've done studies on this. Breathing in and out through your nose actually lights up your brain. It's actually oxygen. So when you have a cold and you feel like dopey, it's because you're breathing through your mouth and it's not oxygenating your brain as well as breathing in through your nose.
That's cool.
Now, what's interesting about this is, so here's something way out of science, and yet there's got to be some kind of scientific way to prove it. You know, my elemental breathing.
Yep.
The earth breath and the ether breath. So to me, that they're on two ends, right? The earth and the ether, earth, and then air, fire, and water are in between. So the earth breath and the ether breath are both in through the nose and out through the nose. One is a little bit more slow and deliberate. That's the ether breath. And then the earth breath in through the nose, out through the nose, grounding, right? Yep. But as you're grounding yourself, you're lighting up your brain. As you're stilling yourself with the ether breath, you're lighting up your brain. So there is, I mean, there's got to be proof. I haven't done any studies, but I have a family member who is certified in neurospirituality.
Oh, cool.
That's science.
That's a great
spirit. I mean, that neuro spirituality, like that's science and spirituality all together in one word.
Sounds like I got a new career ahead of me.
It's a really fascinating, but I think that, and I don't know, I would have to read a little further into it. But I kind of feel like when you get into neurospirituality, you lose a little bit of the magic of spirituality.
Yeah. That's entirely possible. Although, again, one of the things that one of the authors and people I was researching, when they said it's not woo-woo, it's just part of what we actually know, our bodies and actually know how to do. It's part of being natural. It's part of being human. That to me said, you know what? Sometimes we're putting, spirituality on a pedestal, whereas it's actually kind of just built in, and we just need to know how to use it. There's something comforting about that.
True, right? Like,
yep.
So whenever I would have somebody sit in a chair to do an energy session or have a conversation about energy, and I think I probably heard it from one of the teachers I had at least, was the idea that an energy session Reiki, whatever energy work that you do. Oh yeah, that's cool. Um, sorry, you know how
Yep.
that happens.
I know. He's
I
chatty
all
today.
This is what I say. First of all, number one, I'm not giving you energy. I'm channeling energy. I'm just a conduit, right? Like that's number one. But number two, what is the benefit of it? What the benefit of it truly is that it puts your body in a state where it can remember how to heal itself.
Mm.
Right? Your body
Mhm.
has all those mechanisms. Your body
Right.
already knows how to heal, right? It's
Yep.
just that certain things it needs a little help,
A little catalyst, a little
a
poke in
little
the
cat,
behind to
right?
get going.
Yeah, exactly. So that, I mean, to me, that's first of all plausible.
Yep.
Second of all, comforting.
Yep.
And third of all, and whenever I've done a session, especially on somebody who's never had energy work before, it's like, listen, I can't tell you what you're going to experience or what you're going to feel because it's different for everybody. But if you walk away from this session and the only thing you tell me is that you feel more calm and more relaxed, I'm going to be like, score, I
Right.
did my job, right?
Mission
So
accomplished.
um it's so interesting that it's a huge, right, it's a huge, a huge construct, I don't know, whatever word I'm looking for, that if it were leveraged appropriately, but there are, see, that's why we can't talk about that other thing, because there
Mhm.
are people that don't want that to happen, right?
Right.
Like,
Yep.
you know
Yep.
but as I'm turning my head and we're talking about medicine and Reiki and these things for healing, um the placebo effect,
Right.
right?
Right.
The placebo effect bridges science and spirituality. The placebo
Yeah.
effect demonstrates that belief and expectation can lead to real measurable healing, even when treatment is inert. I mean, come on.
Right. Right. And that's recognized by science, and it's also kind of like um, praised on the woo-woo side by like what's when you believe that your body knows how to heal itself. What do you know? It often does.
Yeah, right. Um, and
Why are we not doing that more?
Well, I think probably to the pharmaceutical companies, the idea of a placebo working
Because it's
is a
free.
very disagreeable notion, right? Like,
That's true.
um,
How are we going to make money on that?
yeah, that's, oh yeah, look at that. Energy medicine. Energy medicine, they're saying, is a place where it bridges. Um, Practices like acupuncture, Reiki, and energy healing are gaining attention in the scientific community. Some studies show that these therapies can promote healing by affecting the body's energy flow, though more research is needed.
More research is needed.
Um,
Yes. Um, on that, so that I got a thought I want to get in here before I forget it. There are several scientists that are really um, jumping up and down saying, come on, everybody, scientists, look at all the evidence and study this stuff. Don't keep dismissing it. Study it. Let's get all kinds of studies on this stuff. One of my favorite guys is Rupert Sheldrake. The guy is like, he's like a well, he's two things. Number one, he's like really, really loud and animated, and a lot of the traditional science, establishment hates him because he's kind of a jerk to them, look saying, "Look, you're discounting evidence." He did some research on um, people who have dogs, and the dogs know when you're coming home because they
right.
get up and walk over to the door, and he's done like he had like
They do
somewhere
know too,
around
by the way.
hundreds, maybe even thousands of people send him anecdotal stories about this happening, and he picked a few of them, and they put cameras in the house and yada yada yada. And long and short of it is, he decided like, hey, this is a thing. I'm going to research it, and he presented his research, and he said there were two kinds of responses. Some responses were like, huh, that's really cool. We should dig into that and learn more about this. And the other responses were of course, this is impossible. You must have made a mistake. Something in your research is faulty. Period.
Right. So, just so people know, and you can look up Rupert Sheldrake, I find this very interesting. Expanding the concept of morphogenetic fields, Sheldrake posited a spatiotemporal connection termed morphic resonance,
I love that
whereby,
term. Yep.
I love this, whereby the more often a self-organizing process takes place, the easier it will be for it to take place in the future. And what is that? The
Magic.
collective consciousness.
Yes, it's a collective consciousness, and it's also how magic works.
Right. That's it. That is amazing. So here's another. Now this is I have you ever heard of Dr. Eric Pearl?
Pearl, yeah, I believe so.
The reconnection. So he is whatever, a chiropractor. Yeah. The cats know when it's time for their feeder to release their food.
My cat did that too. It was crazy. And I messed with him a couple times and I changed the time. And they knew at the new time that the food was going to drop.
Yeah, see, can't fool them. Cats.
Yeah.
Now dogs would be mad, but cats are like, yeah, okay.
Nice try,
Anyway,
human.
so you in your love of books, you should read this book.
Okay,
You will very much enjoy it. I felt the energy from the book. I felt the energy from the book before I cracked it open, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to read this." So he's a chiropractor, and it tells his whole story. So I won't give too much of it, but basically, he has some kind of a spontaneous connection to the ability to heal people. Who to Coventina?
She said, I love his book, as we talked about. Sheldrake,
I thought she was talking about Eric Pearl.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we don't
I don't
know.
know. See, that's the problem with comments. Actually, but next week when Coventina's on, we could ask her.
Okay,
so,
we'll do that. But
anyway,
Eric Pearl, keep going.
I actually am going to get to meet him in a couple of weeks because he's going to be here local in one of the shops. Ooh. So I'm excited. So we'll there'll be a little more to talk about there. I believe that he actually attunes people to do it. Yeah, Eric Pearl. I believe he actually attunes people to his modality that he's created. He's cool. A very powerful healer. He's healed like communities that have had community issues. So I'm very excited to meet him, but I really think I would actually lend you my copy of his book, but I lent it to somebody else and I never got it back. So that's the way that works.
Yes.
Anyway, so another to me a really nice bridge between the science and the woo-woo or the spirituality. I cannot believe already it's almost like time to hang it up. So
this is a deep topic and we could really keep going.
We sure could. And it's what's interesting is there's so many places to go, right? But I think really what I wanted to say in the beginning is, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could just give the gift of a little bit of woo to somebody who's really got the science blinders on? Like, what does it take? Wouldn't it be amazing if you could just have, give a little glimpse of to somebody?
I think Dean Radin's research is that, where he says, look, again, the example of the kind of telepathy. And it's not 25%, it's 25.5%. Why is that, right? He presents his arguments in very much a scientific way that a scientist reading that's going to go, I either have to totally dismiss this guy completely, or I have to say, interesting, this deserves more attention.
Well, and it does deserve more attention. I mean, right? That it's really interesting because, like, so as I'm looking at the comments about energy medicine, um, and it's like some studies show that these therapies can promote healing, and then energy medicine is a cornerstone of many spiritual traditions. The concept of chi or
Hmm.
prana, life force energy, flows through these systems with the idea that manipulating energy can promote healing and well-being. And it's like, I guess I just don't understand how people can't feel it, right? Like, I can feel it.
Hmm.
I can feel it.
Yep.
I can connect to it.
But if you're completely opposed to the idea, you will tell yourself subconsciously
That
not to feel it.
now, that is true. So I won't say who, but I was in an energy work class with somebody I know very well, who skeptic at best, um, whatever the words are, doesn't matter. And so we were learning the levels of Amakua Key. We were learning the levels, and so we get attuned. I already was attuned. I attended as many classes as I possibly could because I loved it
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
But here is this person who is, we do the attunement, and then we have lunch, and then we sit down and go to work with the energy. And the first thing you do is teach people how to take that energy and send it to themselves, balance
Mm,
their own chakras, send
excellent.
it to their own heart. So here is this person sitting saying, I feel nothing. Okay. I feel nothing. I feel nothing. I don't feel a thing. I don't feel anything. And I'm going, really? You don't feel anything? You're spinning like that and you feel nothing? And
Wow.
she's like, like, it was almost like it took a second for her brain to catch up, like to wrap her mind around it, because she was literally
How interesting.
spiraling,
Right.
which all you need is a little good connection to the energy, and you can totally make yourself do that. But some people call that kundalini,
Oh, yeah. Right.
you
Right.
know,
Yep.
whatever. But I just find it so fascinating that even when the evidence is right there and they're experiencing it, I
Hmm.
don't feel anything.
Right.
Really? Are you sure? Because I'm seeing something.
Right. That's a good story. I like that. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So,
Right.
and you know what? And here's another good one, actually. Like, I mean, it's the woo, but Coventina says when she meditates with others, I always, when I meditate with others, I always spin. I spin a lot myself personally too. But here's something interesting, and I've led enough group guided meditations and participated in enough to know that always in actual guided meditations that are kind of like a journey where they take you through uh, certain things, or um, they involve some kind of energy,
Hmm.
people will come back and they'll say, oh, I saw this. Oh, yes, I saw that too. And oh, I saw a giraffe. And yes, I saw the giraffe too. Like,
Right.
it
Right.
happens all the time.
And
So,
somehow in the collective.
yeah, it's in the collective. You're tuning into the same energy, you're interpreting it the same way. There's just no other way to put that.
Yep.
Like, just have fun, because it's just fun. Like, what is wrong with it just being fun?
Hmm.
Playing in the energy is fun. I mean, I told you I used to have energy ball fights with a student of mine because it was fun. Now,
Huh,
could I have
cool.
let him win sometimes? I could have, but I did it because that's just me. Whatever. Um. Anyway, so in the grand scheme of things, now we're really going to go over a little bit, but that's okay.
A good topic.
In the grand scheme of things, wouldn't how do I put this? Wouldn't the world be better if we could just bring a little more woo onto the other side?
Yes.
You know what
And
I
I think
mean?
we'll
Like,
get there. I believe we will get there. I think it's a slow process, but I think we will.
I do too. And I think that so in another mastermind that I'm in, there's some kind of science or woo-woo to the spider web that goes all the way from my corner of my monitor to the ceiling that's hitting the sun, and I didn't know it was there. Anyway, the percentage of people who identify as spiritual as opposed to religious is really going up.
Yes.
And
Yes,
and
that is
and
true.
so I don't think that speaks to people losing their beliefs about their or their faith. I just think they're losing patience with the organization.
Yes, I would agree with that.
y- you know
And they're actually strengthening their spiritual beliefs and realizing in some cases that they need to leave behind some of those man-made dogmatic systems in order to progress.
and here's the truth. Oh, wait till you hear this one. Here's the truth. It just feels better to believe those things. It just feels better, right?
Mhm.
You have fun, you enjoy yourself, you're calmer, you're less reactive. Like when you work with the energy and all that, all those things, it just feels better. Life is better, life is easier when you have that as a part of your life.
I
And
agree with that.
so,
Life is easier for sure and better.
right?
Yep.
And so, even if, and I'm not saying it is, and I'm not saying it isn't, this is, about an exchange of ideas. Even if it truly is, you're born, you live, you die, wouldn't you rather live happier and
With joy.
easier and with joy and feeling a part of a collective or a part of something larger and something bigger than this
Yeah. Yeah.
here? I
Do
mean,
it do it just for the joy's sake, if nothing else.
right,
Right.
like, I mean, and I heard someone else, we've heard, you and I have heard this more than once from people we have conversations with when we talk about the concept of heaven and hell, and how they many people say this is hell. I don't believe that. I
Yep.
don't feel that.
No, I
I
don't either.
embrace the joy,
Yep.
and part of the joy was
Yep.
connecting with you and doing this every week. So I would encourage everybody, woo or not, find yourself that's something that's a deal breaker to do every week. That's enlightening and encouraging and uplifting, and because that's what this is for me.
Yeah.
So but really, if it is, you're born, you live, you die, and that's it, there's nothing else, why not live happy
Live in the joy
and
because you
joyful?
can. You can.
Right, you can.
Right.
That's it. So wow. Okay, so next week Coventina's going to be on,
All right.
and we're going to talk about something that you and I already, we have to let her know too, but she came up with the topic. So um yes, as it relates to energy, and I can't remember. It was so long ago. Uh,
Yes.
Actually, it's kind of about relationships and compromise
Yeah.
and
Compromise in relationships. That's right.
yeah, right. Um, yes, Matthew, I will still let you speak. Uh, Anyway,
I'm glad he lets me
um,
speak too.
oh yeah, right. I don't let everything come out that I hear. Anyway, which is why I said we couldn't talk about that one thing. But anyway, so we're gonna have Coventina next week, and then hopefully this gal who is a spiritual book editor is gonna come and join us. And I'm gonna reach out to, I think it's time we heard about the astrology for the end of the year. So
Oh,
I'm gonna reach
absolutely.
out to
Yeah, we're coming up
Lisa.
on the end of that third quarter or fourth quarter.
Yeah,
So let's
right.
do that.
So it's about time. And I know that we've got a full eclipse in March. I think it's a lunar eclipse in March of 2025. So we definitely want to, talk to Lisa and kind of get set up for that stuff. So we've got a lot of exciting things coming in the next few weeks. And now that we've hit all the way to the end, if you have not yet, please hit the subscribe button. And
Yay.
if you like us, if you enjoyed it, what is it? What am I trying to say? Hit that like button, right? And the notification button while you're in it.
And share.
And share. And share.
Mom says share.
Yeah, there you go. Invite your friends. Bring your friends over for the afternoon. We'll have a slumber party. Me and John will wear our pajamas one day. There you go. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for sticking around until now. And we will see you next week.